My name is Breelynd Huntley, and I'm currently a clerk at the Ferndale Library, but I've worked here for 9 years. 7 of those years were as a page and 2 years as a clerk, and I also volunteered as a teen before I was hired. So I've been a patron since I was about 5. At least that's as early as I can remember. I think that's about as early as I can remember. My mom told us that when we could write our names was when we could get our library card, because she wanted us to actually sign our names. And there was, back then, yes, early literacy was always a very big deal, but it wasn't as big as it is now, it feels like, at least when I was a kid. And so when I got my library card, I had one of those old, the blue and tan ones. I don't know where that thing is. I need to find it, because I think I still have it somewhere. And so I remember going to summer reading programs as a kid. I remember the puppet shows that were done every summer. I remember concerts. I remember ponies coming to the library. We had the fire trucks. I remember all of that. The biggest thing I remember, like, summer reading was always like a big thing for us. And back then you had a goal of how many books you could read during the summer. And so my goal was always like 100 books. I'm going to read 100 books in 3 months. And I almost always got it. And back then, every book you read was like a scoop of ice cream on top of like the ice cream cone. So you just kept stacking them higher, and that was summer reading. And it was a lot of fun as a kid, but I do actually like the bingo cards now better. As a staff member, it's way easier. But like getting that summer reading thing, every year we looked forward to summer reading. We looked forward to the programs. And then when I hit, I think it was like 4th or 5th grade is when we started doing the children's craft fairs, and I started doing those. So the children's craft fairs is where you have a bunch of kids sign up, and they come on the day that the craft fair is going on, and they get to sell their crafts. So one year I actually sewed on a sewing machine. I sewed purses, and I sold purses, and actually one of our current patrons, I remember selling her a purse when I was like 10 or 11 years old. And then one year I made flower pens where, you take the pen and you wrap the gardening tape around it and you put the flower on top, and, it's a great way so people don't steal your pens. But, so I remember selling those for like $1 a piece, and I think I made like $40 or $50 off of materials that probably cost me 10. Did really, really well that year. And then it was right about middle school where I started going to book club as a teen. And that's kind of where I really started realizing that this was my second home, and the library really started to become my family. Because I was a very awkward teenager. Not that everybody's not awkward as a teenager. We're all, hormonal and weird and crazy. But I felt I never felt accepted by my peers, mostly because, I'm a bigger person and my personality at the time didn't match. Whereas now it does. But when I went to book club, that's where I met Diane, and she kind of became a bit of a mentor to me. And I realized that, you don't have to be this quiet person that doesn't take up space. And she started mentoring me and kind of letting me do these things for our teen area. I did a lot of prep for summer reading programs. I actually volunteered a couple summers at every summer reading program, helping set up and take down, and doing other things. I actually got to learn how to set displays and shelf read and all this stuff before I was even hired. And then I remember it was my junior year of high school, and funnily enough, I was in backstage at Disneyland with my choir, because we were performing in Disneyland. We were getting ready to walk out to the stage where they had all of us performing. And Di gives me a call saying, you need to get in here. They've got page positions open. And so I started jumping up and down. All of my classmates are looking at me like, you are a freak. And so I'm super excited. I'm pumped. And then we get to go out on stage and sing in Disneyland. And when I got back, I got hired as a page when I was 17 years old. And until I was 24, I paged all the way through college. And then from 24 to 26, I've been a clerk, and I'm going to retire from here. I'm 26. I will be here until I'm 65. I've been advocating for libraries for, the last 18, 19 years. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
It's been a long journey at this point. I mean, like I said, I'm only 26. But I have such a long history with the library as a patron and then a volunteer and then a staff member. And it's funny because whenever I go somewhere else, like if I want to go on vacation or whatever, there's 2 places I have to see. Number 1 is the zoo, because I'm an animal person. And the second is the library. I have to go to the library and see what it looks like. How does it compare to my library? What do I wish that my library had, or what do I wish the other place had that would be better? So like I was in Everett on Thursday, and I had I was talking about Game of Thrones with one of the associates at one of the stores, and she said, "Oh, I wish I could watch Game of Thrones. I don't have HBO. I'll have to steal somebody's password." And I told her, "You're part of the Snow Isle Library. Why don't you go to it and get Game of Thrones on DVD?" I'm the future in libraries.
Youth.
Because everybody else is retired, I'm not. I've subbed out in Linden, Deming, and quite often on Bookmobile. And the cool thing, especially with Bookmobile, is you get to know the patrons really, really well. And that's kind of something I've carried into Ferndale. I've started learning patrons' names. So they walk in and I can almost always greet my regulars by name. We've got, we got a couple of regulars on Sunday. I know them I know their habits, I know their names, and I know exactly probably what they want from me right away. Just seeing them walk in the door. Oh, they're here. We better get the weather report ready. Every Sunday without fail. Or I have a family that comes in and I ask them how they're doing in rugby because I know that they play rugby on the weekends. And Ferndale is one of those places I find that, we're fairly large for a small town, but we're still a community, and it's nice when you walk into a place that you can be greeted by name. And it kind of makes you feel more welcome, especially with kids. I want to know the kids' names so that they know they're welcome here and they're going to advocate for us when they're older. Because those young kids that some people may find obnoxious are eventually going to be our voters. And I don't want to lose them because some other patron is like, well, they're playing video games. Well, I don't care. They have the right to do that. And they are eventually going to be my taxpayer that I want to make sure they have a good time now so that they don't fall out of love with us, in 10 years. Because, that lady was mean and said I couldn't play my video game.
Yeah.
And I've had that conversation with patrons. I like my kids. Especially on the weekends, we don't get youth services. We pretty much do what we can, and if youth service isn't here, we try to make sure the kids, keep it to adult roar. But they're, as much as I'm the future of the staff, they're my future for my job. If I don't have the love of, if the library doesn't have the love of the community, we don't have a reason to be here. And we have to keep current on what the patrons want. So if the patrons want DVDs, we're going to give it to them. We just started Canopy streaming, which is what everybody's doing, is streaming. So you have to kind of keep moving forward. Yeah, we're always going to have books. We're always going to have audio books. We're always going to have movies. But we need to keep up with our other services in order to stay current, or what's the point? I think this was about 6 years ago. I had one of my uncles ask me, well, isn't the library dying? And I looked at him, I said, our circulation goes up every year. We constantly have more and more kids for summer reading. We're constantly trying to keep ourselves current. You really think we're dying? We've had to add jobs because we can't keep up with the demand sometimes. It's crazy how much people think the library is irrelevant until they find out what we actually do. We're not your grandma's library anymore. We're not that quiet place. I tell people always ask me, well, isn't this a library? Shouldn't they be quiet? And I'm like, we're in Ferndale. This is a community center.
Yeah.
It's very different now. Because I remember as a kid, my mom, like she did the whole thing to us. And if you didn't, we left. And now, I swear, some of the parents on Monday mornings when we have double story times, the parents are louder than the kids. We just put out a sign saying, hey, it's story time. Just beware. If you want it quiet, come back at 6. I do sometimes think we should have quiet hours. As evenings are when we have students in and they are going to be quiet. So Yeah, between 6 and 9, Monday through Thursdays, it's generally pretty quiet in here. As quiet as it is then, that's how loud it is, though, on storytime mornings.
Yeah.
So, middle of the day gets quiet, too, but, it's an ebb and flow that you kind of have to keep balanced. Because you want to please everyone, and you're not going to ever be able to please everyone, but you sure gonna try.